All right, and we're live. Welcome back, party people, to a live episode of the Worthy Of Show. Today, we're going to talk about self-gaslighting. Okay, so in the last episode of the Worthy Of Show, we did talk about gaslighting, and the video is linked below in the description, so go check that out after you watch this one. But I want to dive in a little bit deeper because a lot of us don't realize that we can actually gaslight ourselves. And if you are anything like me, we are absolutely excellent at it. It is so easy to put ourselves down and to find excuses and reasons for our behavior, aside from the fact that it's actually okay that we're feeling that way, aside from the fact that it's actually a normal reaction. So let me take a step back before I get on my soapbox here. First off, in case you haven't seen the last slide that I did, gaslighting is when someone manipulates you into thinking that the reality in front of you isn't actually reality, aka your thoughts, feelings, reactions, the world around you even are wrong. So every time I go live, my nose itches, my goodness. Self-gaslighting is when we end up doing this to ourselves. So first off, how do we know? How do we know that we're doing this to ourselves? We tend to ask questions like, am I making this up? What if I made a mistake? What if I'm doing this for attention? Look, I understand this to a degree, to a very big degree. So for example, I think it was like almost 2 years ago now, I was out on a Grubhub shift and there was a lot going on. I was having a really rough day. Well, in the car, no one around me, I started having a panic attack. I was struggling to breathe. I could hardly see straight. And all I knew, I was like, okay, I'm in a car. I need to pull over somehow. But I wouldn't even let myself call my mom because I was like, what if I'm doing this for attention? What if I'm making this up? What if I'm doing this to make myself look like I am struggling more than I really am? What if I'm doing this for attention? While I was alone in the car with no one else seeing me. This particular response stems from the fact that I had an undiagnosed chronic illness and I was gaslit by the medical community for years, and in fact still am, but that's another soapbox. And I didn't end up getting diagnosed until I was 17. And so for the first 17 years of my life, it was really, really tumultuous. Add into that I was in the abusive relationship cycle from the time I was 12 until I was 23. And so by the time I, was grown and out on my own and doing things, my brain had been so disconnected from reality that it didn't even trust itself. My brain was convinced that I was having a panic attack. Oh, I keep shaking my table. My brain was convinced that I was having a panic attack in my car by myself where no one could see me for attention. Now, this drove me crazy because in the middle of it, I remember thinking to myself, there's no one in here. How am I doing this for attention when I won't even call my mom to ask for help? How am I doing this for attention when no one else can see what's happening? Whose attention am I getting? Myself? Do I need to do this to make myself feel better? And that didn't stop the voices at the time, but it helped to ground me after the fact because I was like, maybe I'm not doing this for attention. Maybe the times I was told I was doing things for attention, it was normal. So moving on to why do we do this? So that's an example of what this is, right? We end up telling ourselves that we are wrong, that we are doing something for something other than the fact that it's a normal, proper reaction to things. Or if we have anxiety and our brain doesn't work correctly, right? We gaslight ourselves because we have been gaslit and manipulated so much in one or more areas of our lives that our brain began to take it as reality. And when things are said to your brain over and over and over and over again, it creates neural connections based on those things, and it becomes an actual part of how the brain functions. This is why, if you've followed me on social media, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, why I talk a lot about affirmations and saying them even when you don't believe them, because right now it doesn't matter if you don't believe them. It matters that you need to be saying it over and over and over to get it into your brain. So this self-gaslighting is present in a lot of different areas and a lot of different communities, but it's especially prevalent when it comes to abuse victims. Because as I've talked about before, the first thing an abuser will do is gaslight the heck out of you to get you to not believe the reality around you and to not see that the reality in front of you is actually true. And so add on to that the fact that society gaslit you, or you were medically gaslit, or somehow, some way you were told that how you felt was wrong and your feelings were wrong, and that communicating how you felt was hurting somebody else. That is how we get into this cycle of gaslighting. And being in that abusive environment, if I could talk, words just tend to dip out when I'm in the middle of talking. But this is especially prevalent when we're in that abusive environment, because over and over our brain is taught that it can't trust itself. And when it can't trust itself, it's going to question itself consistently. So even when a proper reaction does come up, our brain goes, wait a second. Am I really feeling this? Am I really doing it this way? Is it really that bad? Maybe I shouldn't have. It's equivalent to falling down, getting a massive gash in our arm, and looking at it and going, is it really there? Maybe it doesn't hurt that bad. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe I shouldn't go get it stitched up. Maybe I shouldn't go get it taken care of, because what if I'm just making it up? That feels dramatic, right? But it doesn't feel dramatic to question our ability to actually feel and communicate our feelings. But really, it's the same concept. We have to work through and be able to communicate our feelings without questioning ourselves, or be able to push through the questioning ourselves in order to eventually get our brain to understand that it's safe to do so. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so let me back up just a sec. Even when we are out of the abusive relationship, this is why I put hats on, because I play with my hair the whole time. I'm so sorry, guys. Even after we're out, these thoughts become pervasive and they take over your life. Like, just like how I questioned my own reality regarding a panic attack, you may question your reality about work, friendships, romantic relationships. You may question your mental state. You may question your ability to do things. You may question your ability to think things. You may question your own intelligence, and so on and so forth. When you've been manipulated, your brain thinks that the manipulation was actually reality. Now, I don't know if I have any anime nerds around here, and I can't think of the actual name of the jutsu, but there in the first season, there is a jutsu, and it's like a magical power, essentially, for the people who don't watch Naruto. But there is basically this power that this magic they perform that gets you to see something that isn't actually there. And the only people that are able to break out of that are the people who have been trained to recognize that jutsu and to pay attention to their inner belief and their inner feeling to be able to break out of it and find freedom from it. That is exactly how breaking free from gaslighting works. We have to train ourselves to recognize when this is happening so we can break out of that jutsu, to break out of that magic. Now, for the Naruto nerds, don't come after me. I know it was not a great representation, okay? But it's still a good comparison, okay? So bear with me. So even after, and this can lead you to, even after you've realized that you were gaslit, you question that as well. You're like, am I really being gaslit? Was I really gaslit? Are you sure that that's really what happened? I don't know. And we have to train ourselves to fight through that to see the actual reality. But how do we do that? How do we break the cycle? How do we break that jutsu, right? Doing so isn't easy, but it is possible. The first step is to commit to the work. You have to decide that it is worth the work. You have to decide that the effort and the time that you have to put into it is going to be worth it. And yes, it is 100% of the time. I can guarantee you that it is, but you have to come to that conclusion on your own. I can't want it for you more than you want it for you. I can't give you my belief. You have to come to that conclusion on your own. So even though you may be hanging out here going, well, Carly, I get that. Like, absolutely, I know that it's worth it. So why am I struggling? Right now, you're battling the knowing versus the belief in your brain that says it's not worth it, that says you're not good enough, that says you could never do it. And you have to be able to fight through that to come to the understanding that it's worth fighting for in your specific life, in your specific situation. And you also have to decide that you are worth the work. A lot of the times we know we will tell our friends, we will encourage our friends, our family, our coworkers to do the work because we know that they deserve better. But us, nah, no, we're not worth it. It's not, no, we're not good enough and we are undeserving. Everyone else is great, but we are the select special one that doesn't deserve the goodness, that doesn't deserve the healing, that doesn't deserve to put in the work. And we have to fight through that in order to take that first step. This is all so much easier said than done. And I'm not trying to make light of it, but I want us to understand the truth behind what our brain is telling us, right? Okay, take a deep breath. I get so hyped up that I just lose my train of thought and then I just start rambling and then I can't even breathe. Okay, so once you go to that work and once you do make that decision, you have to continue to make that decision every day when you wake up in the morning, every afternoon when you are struggling to sit down and eat lunch because you remember what your ex said every time you ate. You have to remember that and make that decision every night at bedtime when you are questioning your ability to put your kids to bed and to give them a safe home, when you are questioning your ability to keep your kids from becoming victims, when you're questioning your ability to keep your kids from becoming abusers, when you're questioning your ability to even show up and wake up tomorrow. You have to make the decision every day. Is it fair? Absolutely not. At all. Not even a little bit. It's not fair and it's not right. And it shouldn't have happened to you and you shouldn't have to do this work. But if you don't do this work, you are going to stay where you've been for however long and never move forward. I understand that it's not fair, but if we get stuck in it's not fair, we are never going to be able to take that step forward to begin to break the cycle. Because if you're a mama, if you've got kids, the harsh reality is that if you don't take the time to put in this work, and if you don't take the time to change this, if you don't take the time to heal yourself, you're going to pass this on to your kids. And then this is going to be their trauma to deal with and their battles to fight. And that's just reality. It's not fun, it's not comfortable, and it's not fair. But it's even less fair to our kids. So if you're a mama, if you've got kids, if you're a caregiver, if you have people that look up to you, it is your responsibility to heal from that. So that way you don't pass it on to your kids. So once you become aware, hyper aware of what gaslighting is, you take so much power back. Not only are you going to see it everywhere else, but you're going to notice it in yourself. And when you begin catching yourself gaslighting, when you begin catching yourself gaslighting yourself, you can ask, these are some questions to ask. One, is this true? So for example, when I was in the car having a panic attack, convincing myself that I was doing it for attention when no one was in the car, I had needed to take a step back and ask myself, is it true? Is it true that I'm doing this to myself when there's no one else in the car? Now my brain wants to say, absolutely, it's true. But logic says there's no one else in the car that can see you. So no, it's not true. The second question to ask, if it's not true, or even if it is true, is it someone else's opinion? Opinions are not true or false. Opinions are thoughts that we create in our mind. And so if someone else's opinion sticks on us, that doesn't mean that it's true. It means that we have chosen to believe their opinion. So if we are gaslighting ourselves that an anxiety attack is done for attention, then we believe someone else's opinion because we were told at some point by somebody else that that our reactions were for attention. So that's not true. And that's not something that I've told myself. My hair is tickling my face. I'm sorry. Those aren't things that we've said to ourselves. Those are beliefs that we've latched onto that we've repeated to where it's stuck in our brain. Taking that step back and being able to recognize if we're doing it to ourselves or if someone else has said those things and we are echoing their voice in our mind will really, really help you to break the cycle. So another question to ask yourself if a friend would say these things to you. If you catch yourself gaslighting yourself, if you catch yourself having a panic attack in the car when no one else is in there, ask yourself, would your friend say you're doing this for attention? And one, really ask yourself, is it a real friend? Because some of us have friends that treat us like garbage. Some of us have friends that we're with because we're scared to be alone. So if you've got crappy friends that will gaslight you, you need to check your relationship with that. But someone who really cares about you and really loves you, would they say that to you? Or would you say that to a friend? Would you tell them that their experience was for attention? The answers to these questions are very uncomfortable, but they force us to break out of the stuckness that we've lived in. I don't like the word stuckness. That feels weird. Break out of the prison that we've been locked in due to gaslighting, manipulation, and abuse. So if you really need help, like if you are really in the trenches and I had to do this, get an outside perspective. So personally, I have a very solid support group that I can talk to about this. Like if I can't figure out if my response is valid, I take the situation to them. I've got different people, different friends that aren't friends together. And this is a strategy to me, right? Because my brain loves to find any reason to knock me down. So if I ask a friend group in my mind, I'm not saying you should do this or whatever. This is just how my brain works. If I ask a friend group where I know they all care about me and they all give me the same answer, I'm saying, well, they just said that because they talked about it. They're just saying that because they don't want to be mean. They're just saying that because. But I've got a support group that don't know each other and don't connect with each other. So I ask her over here and her over here. And if they're both saying that my reaction was normal and it was okay, it's harder for my brain to go, well, they made that up. Because if they're both giving me the same reaction, chances are, or the same response, chances are my reaction was 100% normal. Having someone else's perspective will help bring you back to center, because when you can break out of your own head and have someone who's willing to be honest with you and sometimes even give you that tough love, it will help pull you back to reality. Create some solid affirmations and say them consistently. I mentioned this earlier, but like how we talked about how the gaslighting gets stuck in our heads and we end up self-gaslighting because things are said over and over and over and they get stuck in our DNA, right? It gets stuck inside of our brain. When things get stuck inside of our brain, they play on repeat, and you end up believing them because they are said so often. This is why we need to say our affirmations even when we don't believe them, because it doesn't matter if we don't believe them. What matters is that we say them, and then eventually we're going to plant the seed, and then over time we'll fertilize the seed, and then over time you'll water the seed, and then over time that seed, I just punched my desk, and over time that seed will sprout. What matters is that you create consistent affirmations and you say them, or you create affirmations and say them consistently. I get so fired up, I can't even talk. But anyway, I have lots of podcast episodes. I've got YouTube videos here on the channel for this. I'll make sure I link them in the description or in the podcast episode for those of you who are listening. Check them out. But here are some that have really helped me that I think will help you as well. So number one, my feelings and opinions are valid, and I am allowed to express them. If allowed is not a word that benefits you, you can say it is safe to express them. I am safe enough to express my thoughts, my feelings, my opinions, my reactions. Another one that seems simple but has helped me a ton is it's okay to feel my feelings. And this one's really, really hard for me because I stuff them down, but I say this all the time, but it's like dropping a Mentos in a Coke bottle and putting the lid on right away. It'll hold for a second, it'll hold for a minute, but eventually it's going to explode and take the entire bottle with it. Versus if you drop a Mentos in a Coke bottle, it'll be messy, it's going to overflow, and it's going to make a mess, but that mess is cleanable. And it's a lot easier to clean up the Coke bottle and to put the lid back on than to repair the Coke bottle and then make sure the lid still fits, right? Like, I know that's kind of a simplistic way to describe it, but that's kind of how our brain works. So anyway, I need to just say these dang affirmations and focus. So it's okay to feel my feelings. And finally, even if it's uncomfortable, I'm allowed to share how I feel. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Even if you may not like it, even if it's not comfortable, it's okay to share how you feel. Even if others don't like it, it's okay to share how I feel. Take any version of that and create it your own. Or if you just need to take one and use it yourself, do that. Use that. Trust me, it's going to help. You're not going to see a difference overnight. You're not even going to see a difference in a week. But if you keep going, you're going to wake up one day and realize that your entire thinking has shifted and it's going to blow your mind. All right. So When we catch ourselves in the act of self-gaslighting, especially when we are aware, it can be extremely dehumanizing. But you have to remember that the number one rule on the road to recovery is this: give yourself grace. You need to give yourself more grace than you ever thought possible. And here's the deal. I've been saying this a lot on the podcast recently, but I really think that people need to hear it. My business coach, Faith Mariah, shares this all the time. If you use coaching against yourself to beat yourself up, you're doing it wrong. If you are using coaching to prove to your brain that you're worthless and that you're not good enough, you're doing it wrong. So I don't want you to take the knowledge here and beat yourself up. That's the exact opposite. Instead, get curious and just say, wow, it makes sense based on what I've gone through that my brain is doing this. But I also know that I want more, and I'm going to gracefully correct it. When a child is on the wrong path, we don't punch them across the room to get them on the right one. I really hope you don't. If you do, please go get help. But what we do is we gently turn them. We say, hey, bud, over here. No, we don't walk in the road. No, we don't put a fork in the electrical socket. I don't know if any of y'all got to deal with that, but my child, anything metal in electrical sockets, I was like, oh, got to get you away from there. We got to guide you away from there. Sometimes we have to be a little bit tough and say, no, we don't go in the road because I love you too much to let something happen to you. But we're not mean and we're not cruel. We need to have that same mindset when it comes to our kids. And if you were parented in a way that was not respectful to you and your body, that may not be a good example for you. But think about how you would parent a child from here, how you would take care of a child from here. Because I've gotten some messages recently that say that when I bring up child stuff and how I talk to a child, that doesn't resonate with them because they weren't treated great as children and they haven't treated their children great as a result. There's no judgment there, but I just want to be real and be open about the realities of what's going on because abuse runs a lot deeper than we think it does. And having these conversations is going to shift some things, but that's a whole nother episode for another day. Stay on the outline, Carly. So, like I said, this is not your fault. This is an unfortunate but normal response based on what your brain has gone through. You are not broken. You are not a lost cause. You are incredible and you are whole and you are wounded and it's going to take time to heal. The process is not easy, but I can guarantee you that it is worth it. And one final note before I wrap up here. I promise you're never as alone as you feel. Your brain wants to tell you that you're the only one in the world feeling this and that you are the only one who feels this useless and you are the only one who is useless. All right, that sounds weird, but you're the only one who is as worthless as you, and that's not true. There are a lot of people who feel the way you feel. Not to take away from that, not to make you feel inferior or insecure, but I want you to take comfort in knowing that you're not the only one who's going through this. And because you're not the only one who's going through this, it means people have gone before you and healed from it, which means you can heal too. You've got this, boo. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And if you're listening or if you're watching on the YouTube channel, make sure you press the subscribe button down below and hit the bell because from now, for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be going live here daily because I've got some really good stuff coming and I just love hanging out with you. I love being able to connect with you guys live and answer questions. And if you are wanting to come on with me, get some coaching and hang out with me live, make sure if you're listening on the podcast to come check out the YouTube channel, carlylynn.com/YouTube. All right, y'all, never forget that you are strong, you are capable, you are intelligent, and boo, you are so freaking worthy. I love you so much and we'll talk soon.